2024, where Trump and Harris are going head to head in what we are told is the biggest decision of our life. Only we were told that last time and the time before, and probably back in 1802 as well. So everything is dire right now. But today, what we're going to talk about is some of the polls, some of the things that we disagree with, some of the things we agree with, some of the things that keep us up at night, and some of the issues that cause a lot of people trying to stay sober to go back out and drink. Should we be drinking over politics? Is it that big of a deal? Is one way or the other way going to change the course of America forever, as they say? Well, today we're going to weigh in from a sober standpoint and talk about the things that really matter to us, the things that keep us up at night if we were so inclined. Luckily, I sleep pretty good because a lot of these things, they come and go. And throughout life, you learn that every time you turn on the news, yep, it's breaking news. Breaking news. We have breaking news. Well, what's the news? It's breaking news. I mean, it just broke. Apparently, the news is broken. I don't know. But anyway, Terry, how you doing today?
I'm doing all right. I am not too stressed about the election day or anything like that. I've learned to let it go.
Absolutely. And I think that's key. I think we can have healthy things that bother us. We can have some things to get excited about. But I remember back in the day, even in 2016, when I was only 2 years sober, I was pretty excited about things. I didn't, and excited in a bad way. Like, wow, I'm getting irritated. I'm getting sucked into things. And I notice talking to people on social media has gotten very negative. You know, it's either one way or the other, where, you know, everyone's preaching unity, but nobody's unified. And I think that's something that really divides our country and divides us as alcoholics, not knowing, you know, where we stand or what we're doing, or the feeling of helplessness, I think is a big one. The feeling of I don't have control, which is funny because I don't know about you, Terry, but when I first got sober, I was terrified to give up control. Right? I was like, okay, I can't give up control. I can't submit that I have been beat by alcohol. I can't submit to the fact that I could be wrong because I'm so right in my opinions and I'm so standing firm in what I believe. I can't let that go. I mean, who would I be if I wasn't against this or against that? And unfortunately, today our politics is against. It is identity politics at its finest. And that's sad. But Terry, weigh in on this. I know that you get pretty excited about elections and things like that. Tell us how you feel as an alcoholic. How do you stay sober when looking at these things? I mean, we look at the polls and one channel says this guy's winning, the other one says this person's winning, the other says we don't know. How do you stay sober, calm, and what do you do on a daily basis on stressful days? Like,
Well, let me give you a little bit of history here because I grew up in a very political family. Not a big family, just one brother, mom and dad, dog, cat, that sort of thing.
mhm,
My dad was a Republican district something for, for our area where we lived. And so he would go and knock on doors, things like that. Back in the 70s, 80s, that sort of thing. And that's what he did. My mom was very Democrat. And it was so funny because my mom was not real mobile. My dad would actually go out and he would put a Republican, whoever was running for Republican, he'd put that sign. We had a little sidewalk that went right up the middle of our yard to our front door. He'd put the Republican sign on one side and the Democrat sign for my mom on the other. Then he'd do the same thing with the bumper sticker on our screen door, Republican on one side, Democrat on the other. They always laughed because they canceled each other out. So very political family. There wasn't the big arguments though. There was differences of opinion, definitely, and I'm very much middle as far as my thoughts towards politics go. Um, but you know, it's hard. It can be hard.
mhm,
And you know, it's funny. I well, first of all, with polls, I turned them off a week or two ago. Stopped paying attention to them,
mhm.
and I was stuck on them for a while there, and just like, oh no, it's going this way. Oh no, it's going that way. You know, it's just it's pointless. I mean,
Yeah.
look at the accuracy of them. They're never that accurate. But so had to learn to let that go. And one of the things, and this is kind of similar with alcohol. is Marcus, you were talking about how when you got sober, you lacked that control and you were afraid to give away the control. And for me, what it really was, it was that lack of control. But what it was more of is I don't know what's coming next.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to do and how it was going to happen, how I was going to be able to stay sober. Okay, so this is if you've watched any news, they say this is the most consequential election of our lifetime, and they've said that on all the previous ones. When this very well may be, maybe it's not. Whatever, but it's the same feeling that you can get with alcohol. I don't know what's coming next, so I'm voting for what I don't know.
Yeah.
Is this side lying? Is this side lying? I don't know. If so, how do you make your decision on that basis? It's difficult, and it can be difficult. I know
Yeah.
pretty much 99.9% of you have made up your decision, and it's not going to change. And a lot of you have probably already voted, like me. I've already voted, and it's tough. So, how do we make that decision?
I think
I don't know.
one thing
Go.
to chime in also is alcoholics have what's known as an impending sense of doom. We tend to catastrophize everything, where everyone else is like, yeah, whatever, the news says this every time. We're the people that run around and get freaked out about things because, we're alcoholics. That's the way our brain works. That could be the reason we started drinking. It could be the reason we can't stop. We don't really know that, but we do know that that impending sense of doom is big. And I have that all the
Yeah.
time. I mean, in my industry here where we do computer stuff, I mean, every time I turn around, there's some new AI that's going to take out everything we know as our financial industry. And, surprisingly, that's one of the things that really, really bothers me. On the eve of AI, no candidate is talking about it. None. I mean, this is something where it's going to disrupt our financial institutions unlike anything. It's already started. People just haven't noticed it. I notice it because I'm in the trenches every day dealing with it, testing it out, watching what it does. And I think there was a report we're going to talk about tomorrow on one of my other businesses where they're saying that 25% of code coming out of Google, one of the biggest coding employers out there, is now AI. And for me, like in this election, if you're not talking about AI, you're missing the boat entirely. You're talking about, a little windstorm when we're talking about a hurricane coming down the road. And it's like, not that hurricanes come down the road, but if they did, that is what would happen. And it's something that's like, in my opinion, everything pales in comparison to it. And nobody's talking about it. Neither candidate is talking about AI, and that is the biggest issue worldwide today. Some people think it's hype, but look at what it's doing. It is causing job loss. It is causing like free-form code, where you have someone who could have been malicious before. Now they have a programmer for free, or $30 a month, which is basically free. And that's something that I think, those are the things that keep me up at night, is like, okay, where is this going? But again, I have to look at it and say, what control do I have over this? What can I do? Pretty much nothing. Unless I'm running for office, I really can't do anything. And those are things that we look at, and we look at the polls. And I think a lot of what we're seeing is a distraction from reality. We're looking at stuff like this, and it's like this person versus this person. Whereas it's like sometimes you talk about the issues where, yeah, there's some issues on the ballot that I think the people have voted on and the people want, but unfortunately, a lot of stuff is going against it. Where it's like, okay, if the people want it, should it not be something that we're looking at? Should it not be something that we reconsider? And I think that's one of the things is getting awareness for that. And, I try to do what I can in sharing awareness about AI and the issues that matter to me. I know one of the things on the ballot that gets me, and we can talk about some other stuff that Terry has as well. I think he made a good little list. One of the things that bothers me is the hype around the unrealized capital gains tax. And a lot of people, when they hear these things, they sound good on paper. And it's like, hey, yeah, these billionaires are sitting there with $200 billion. Why shouldn't they be taxed on it? Well, there is one thing that I've noticed, and this is something that I've learned in sobriety, and it's to look at something from a far view. Like right now we're looking at it and you're down in the trenches, you're like Kamala and Trump and that's it. It's like, no, that's not it. That's who's going to be the face of the decisions. But is that really what's going to happen? I mean, when Biden got elected, was there really that much that changed? When Trump got elected, I know, that was a big one. Not a whole lot changed. I know some of the laws did change, but in terms of what we thought, which basically in 2016, if you were anti-Trump, you thought the world was going to end. You were like, dude, we are done. We have this whatever, and he's going to do whatever. And I was in that camp back then. I actually liked Bernie, but I was afraid because I was hearing the rhetoric and I was hearing the things, and in reality, not a whole lot changed. It kind of went. There were some things, sure, but in the grand scheme of things, it was actually very small. And the way these things trickle down to our daily lives is really small. And I know that, oftentimes it's like this or that. But back to the thing, and then I'll let Terry chime in. With the unrealized capital gains tax, one, when you let the government in on one thing, it applies to all. They always say it's just for billionaires. But you watch, 20 years down the road, it's going to affect you. They'll say, oh, well, your stock portfolio went up too, and now there's an unrealized, because it's not the unrealized gains for billionaires, it's the unrealized capital gains. And two, what would happen is you're going to have a lot of money taken out of the stock market. I mean, you think about your 401k, you think about your investments. If all these people have to take the money out of the stock or they're taxed on it, which is going to incentivize them to take it out, you're going to have some things change. You're going to have stuff where it's like, hey, you know what? Now I'm going to take it, or I don't have as much incentive to make my business, which is funding a bunch of 401ks, not as powerful or not as profitable. There are different ways around it, and I think that's one of the ones that, I am 1,000% on board with taxing billionaires. 1,000%, probably 10,000%. But that's not the way to do it, because that has a little edge for the rest of us. And when you give them an edge, some politician's going to find it and they'll get a lawyer. They'll say, oh, well, that's good. Now we're going to use that for 401ks, or now we're going to use that for this. I think a better solution for that would be mandate a percentage to be taken out of stocks every year. If you have 100 billion, you need to take 5 billion out a year. End of story. Or X amount. You need to take 10% of your net worth out. Something like that, where it's like mandated to take out, because then guess what? Now it's going to be taxed at a higher rate because now it's income. And now it's under all these other things. And the funny thing about it, this is what gets me, is our government thinks that someone making $400,000 a year and a billionaire are the same. And I've made 400 grand a year in California, and it's not much. It does not go that far at all. Not when you're my age, right? When you're born and you bought your house in the 70s or 80s, sure, you're making 400 grand, you're sitting pretty. But when you're someone who's 40, I'll be 45 pretty soon, and you're buying houses, or even, God forbid, the next generation. I mean, you look at it and it's like, oh, $15 minimum wage. You can't buy a house on that. I mean, I'm here in Florida, you can't buy a house. California, you certainly can't buy a house. You can't even rent an apartment on that. And to say that 400K is the same as a billionaire, that's missing the point. And I don't care who you vote for. Look at the track record since Reagan. It has been anyone at this point up. It protects billionaires. Completely protect. I pay the same for healthcare. As a billionaire, someone with $100 billion has the same price healthcare as me. Now, yes, they spend more because they have a doctor on call for their family, but as far as the government, it stops at $168,000 a year. That's where Medicare stops. Why? Why? And these are things that get me, because a lot of people don't look at the big picture. They don't look at the end result. And even though I was 100% on board, I loved Bernie. Thought he was great. I knew Bernie wouldn't get most of the stuff he wanted passed. And I knew it wouldn't change that much, because ever since Reagan, I mean, there's actually a really good book on this. But ever since Reagan, it has been both parties doing the same thing, talking differently. It's what it is. But anyway, Terry, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh boy, I wish I knew more about this topic. Oh, my phone just decided to pay attention to what I'm saying. I don't know why.
It's the AI. I told you, it's coming for you.
There you go. I don't understand. See?
There we go. She doesn't understand. She didn't understand me. She's like, Marcus is nuts. Don't listen to him.
It thought I said that word that
Ah.
wakes it up. Is what it was. I wish I knew more about the capital gains, the unrealized capital gains. Although I guess I have a instant opinion, and that's that I don't want to be taxed on something that I haven't realized yet. I don't want to be taxed on the profits. Fortunately for me, I don't make that much money, so I probably wouldn't call that. But you were mentioning that you would be worried that they would start taxing those unrealized gains on everyone. And unfortunately, I can't go with the what if happens, because there's a lot of what ifs in the world, and there's a lot of what ifs. What if this president does this? What if this president does this? I have to go with what the evidence that I've seen them do, and what I feel that they're going to do, and how they're acting right now. And that's kind of what I have to go with. It's really difficult in today's world because of all of the focused media that we get, especially on things like YouTube and any other social media, where you start clicking on something that you're agreeing with, it's going to keep giving you that information that you agree with, and your opinions are going to get stronger and stronger. And I'm sure I am a complete victim of that as well. But I have formed many opinions on politics, and I do have very strong beliefs on politics, but it's not going to make me drink. It was interesting. I have watched a couple of podcasts over this past week or two, and especially these last couple days, they're really talking about, what are you going to drink on election night? Well, it depends if this person wins or this person wins. And, oh, how are you going to plan on your drinking and all this and that? And I'm like, what does alcohol have to do with it?
Yeah.
Is it going to, I mean, is you drinking going to help? It's not going to help me. It's going to make me either, well, regardless. For me, if I started drinking, I'm going to be bummed out tomorrow, regardless of who wins. It
I'm
doesn't
bummed out
matter.
today.
Yeah, yeah, it doesn't help. I mean, we think that I know when I was drinking, alcohol definitely helped with that stressful day, the stressful election day, the bad day at work. I had an argument with my friend or my wife. I'm going to have a drink. Is that going to? But what I realized in sobriety is it doesn't help. It pushes the problem down the road. And then the next day, when I wake up sober, I feel hungover, and I still have that problem in my head. So it's twice as bad. And that's what the problem is here. And that's why alcohol is definitely not the answer for me. And I think it's not the answer for any of us. What we can do is deal with what we can control.
Yeah.
I voted. I dealt with what I can control. Other than that, I can I can't really do much.
Yeah.
I'm sure you all, if any of you are on any of the social media, you have those friends of yours that either politically align with you or don't politically align with you, and you got those. I got, like, there's two of my friends that they're just political posts all the time, da 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 da. And are they convincing any of their friends?
Nope.
No, they're not convincing anybody, but they're venting. Maybe if that helps them. And well, both of those people are the ones that are like, I'm going to be getting hammered tomorrow night. It's not. It doesn't help me. I
Yeah.
know that. And so there's a certain level of engagement that I do have with politics, but there's also a huge level of non-engagement. I'm in a I go, a couple things I do. Um, and one of them, I do go to AA meetings. I go to a couple of online meetings a week. There's never politics talked about. Never. And it's amazing. I mean, they may say the stress of the politics today. They may say that, but they don't talk about their opinions or anything like that. Gets away from that. I'm also the president of a bicycle club that has 300 members, and our rides are kind of uh, not happening as much now that the temperatures are in the 30s. But still, we have general meetings and things like that. Never politics, and that's one of the best things that I feel that at least I can do, and that you guys can do as well, to get away from the stress
Mhm.
of politics or the stress of anything in your life, is get involved in something that has nothing to do with it. I go on bike rides. I walk my dog every day. I don't see anybody walking my dog, so there ain't no politics out there. But things like that, and trying to help another sober alcoholic, just getting through what their situations are, and
Yeah.
trying to get them to let go. That's that's where I go. I mean, I have my opinions on the economy,
Mhm.
and I agree with Marcus as far as I feel the rich should be taxed more. And do I feel that the middle class and lower class should be taxed less? I don't know about that. I don't feel I'm overly taxed, actually.
Mhm.
I feel I'm okay. I felt I was overly taxed when I lived in California, because there's the income tax in California as well, and I thought that was pretty ridiculous. But that has allowed them to have the seventh largest world economy, something like that.
Mhm.
So I don't know. There's many different opinions on that. But I don't feel that a 20% tariff is the answer. That's for darn sure. Paying 20% more for everything that's imported, which is going to increase our out-of-pocket expenses. I mean, I'm straight middle class. That would hurt me. And then other things like cuts to Medicare, cuts to Social Security.
Mhm.
I'm going to need that stuff. At least I want it available if I don't need it. But I want that stuff to be available to uh, to friends, relatives, things like that. So
Yeah.
so those are pretty big. They
That's
tell The misinformation is really difficult to wade through
yeah.
in this election.
That's
And it
I wanted to weigh in on that real quick.
Yeah,
It's interesting because when we look at things like that, I remember. I mean, my family was big time Republican too, and now I'm a little bit of both. There's some things I agree with on both sides. Unfortunately, in this one, the sides are kind of skewed. But if I was to say anything, I'd probably be like a FDR or a Kennedy Democrat, the old Kennedy, the one that was president. And it's interesting because like you hear the rhetoric of things like, oh my God, Social Security and Medicare are broke. Yeah, that's the function of them. They're supposed to be broke. If they weren't broke, it wouldn't be working. And the way that it works is if you look at inflation, it is always going to be broke. So when you hear the news say, oh my God, they're dismantling it, it's broke, it's always broke. Or I remember when I was a kid, and tell me if you remember this, Terry. You have to remember this. I mean, it was unforgettable. Ross Perot came out with his ears, and he was like, this $3 trillion debt needs to go away. And I remember I was like, holy crap, the U.S. is in debt? And I figured there was some guy in China that we owed it all to. It's like, oh, we owe China the debt. When in fact, I started studying it. And this is what happened when I got sober. Before I was sober, I lost friendships. I almost lost family members over arguments about politics that I knew nothing about. And I would end friendships. I'd go get drunk. I'd be an ass. And now I'm like, I know a few things. Like I know a little bit about stuff, but I know enough to know that I don't know shit. That's what I know. And when you look at it, how many people argue about the national debt? But what would happen if we paid the national debt off? There would be no money. Debt is money. Yet they talk about, oh, that's $30 trillion debt. It just so happens there's like the circulation of money and the debt pretty much runs hand in hand. Now, if we went and printed $5 bazillion and gave it to some whoever, yeah, that's going to affect inflation, as we saw with the 2021 money printing, right? It caused inflation.
pandemic relief.
Exactly. And you look at that and it's like, did it really affect it? Some, not as much as you would think. And what we have to do is we have to guard our mind, because as alcoholics, if you don't guard your mind, it's like James said in rehab, stand for something or fall for everything. And I stand for the fact that there's a few things I know. In the entire grand scheme of the entire world, I probably know 0.000000000 0.00001%. And that's generous. And what that does is it kind of humbles me in saying I can get off my high horse and not argue with my mom or dad or whoever it is and cause a fight about politics, because there might be something I don't know. And maybe listening to this, there was something you didn't know. Maybe you thought, like I did, that the national debt was dire straits. Or maybe you thought, hey, yeah, that unrealized gains is a good idea. But then we think these things through, right? Like a lot of people in the 2016, they were one way on the life thing, the woman's right thing. And now we're seeing the effects of it. And I'm sure a lot of people are like, wait a minute. I don't know if that's what I thought. I don't know if that's what I thought through, right? And now we're seeing the changes of it. And I'm not saying one way or the other. I'm saying when things pan out, they look differently than in our mind. And that's what we talk about here on this channel is your mind is not the territory. If you have a map of the United States and you look at it, that's not the territory. Like I know if you walk over here and vote and you walk over here and vote, you're in two different states. But whatever created the universe did not have lines in the sand that said Nevada, California. That's us. And financial stuff is a man-made problem. There's plenty of food. There's plenty of kindness and goodness to go around. Everyone can have a house. I mean, there's tons of trees. And guess what? If we don't have trees, we plant more trees. Trees make more trees. It's amazing. But these aren't the things we talk about. We fight about man-made problems and man-made solutions when in actuality it does not much but cause fights and things like that. And I think for me to keep my sanity has to do with realizing I do know nothing, realizing that I don't have a whole lot of control in the situation, laugh at the fact that a lot of people are, we have this made up stuff that we made up that we can fix, and there's lots of people with lots of solutions, but they're not entertaining and they're not what people want. Like in this age of AI, we should probably have like 4 presidents, and Andrew Yang should be one of them. Why? Because he's got different ideas. He's got good ideas, things that are, hey, this would work. Is he right on everything? No. We should have another president that's for stopping all these wars for profit, right? We should have something for everything, not one guy or one gal who's like, I have all the answers. That's what made me an alcoholic. I had all the answers. And where did it get me? In rehab, knowing that I know nothing, in a mental hospital. That's where it got me, when I decided I knew everything. And if you think your candidate knows everything, check yourself. Have a little dose of humility. I had to look at it and say, you know what? Personally, there are candidates I can't stand. Actually, in this race, there's 2 candidates I cannot stand. I can't stand either one of them. I'm good. But I have to look at some and say, hey, you know what? That guy's got a good idea. That girl has something that might pan out. And looking at things objectively and understanding that there's an ebb and flow and there's corrections, like an airplane. You get in an airplane and you think you're going straight from California to Florida, if you're Terry coming to visit me, right? California to Florida. You think you're going there. But did you know across that time, that plane is auto-correcting its course? It is off course more time than it's on course, because it's constantly correcting. Constantly. And our lives are the same way. Our government's the same way, constantly correcting. Hopefully, things work out good. Hopefully, it won't go for the worse. I don't think it will. Every time I've been freaked out, it didn't. And even if it does, what am I going to do? Right? I know a lot of people, they get all hyped up on personal protection laws. And they're like, what if the government comes after me? I'm like, buddy, have you heard of the stealth plane? I think if they want to get you, they're going to get you. I don't know. I mean, maybe you got a lot of stuff, but, we kind of lost that battle. But looking at things objectively like that, like, okay, should we have that right? I don't know. Maybe. I have no idea. That's not something I'm big on. But if we're going to look at it that way, we lost the race there. Like, you can't protect. They're too big. It's too big. It's over. But those are the things I look at. Terry, what are your thoughts on my insanity?
No, let me answer Midas's question real quick.
Yep.
Midas, you said, "What do you do about lonely time?" Midas, try it. What do you like to do? That's the first thing. What do you like to do when you're by yourself, or when is there something that you like to do, an activity that you do with other people? It's really a matter of getting out there. Um, when I got sober, I was quite lonely because I realized that I could not hang out with all my drinking friends anymore, at least temporarily, because they're all drinking. And I didn't want to be around alcohol. I did learn that, don't go to bars. That's a great way to not drink, is stay home and get rid of all the liquor in your house, or stuff like that. So I started going to meetings. That was one thing, and I developed friendships through that. I have a lot of sober friends, and that's one of the things. But like I said, I'm a member of a bicycle club. I'm in AA. When I was living in California, I had a whole group of people that we'd all walk our dogs in the same area, and I'd go hang out with them for a little bit, and then go walk my dog out in the wetlands, and then come back and hang out with them some more. Things like that. Get out there. It's a matter of purposefully going out there and getting yourself to not be so lonely. Try to get off of that social media all the time. That's one thing. Limit that. So there's lots you can do to try and take care of the lonely time. The other thing is don't make that lonely time. Make that I'm alone time. I'm sitting out in the backyard, breathing in the fresh air on a nice sunny day, or for me, coming up, a nice snowy day, something like that,
Mhm.
with my parka on. You know, Figure out things to do. You really have to be purposeful. And that's what I had to do, especially in that early sobriety. I had to consciously make an effort to get out there because I realized that sitting at home all by myself, oh, it looks like my sound is really low.
I think you're
Thank
good.
you. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think he just needs to turn his
But,
speakers up.
anyways, but I forgot what I was supposed to weigh in on.
Yeah, with loneliness, it is a difficult thing when you drink and when you stop drinking. My thing is embrace it. We're taught throughout life that uncomfortable feelings need to be avoided. And how do we avoid them? We drink. But then when I got sober, I had to learn that uncomfortable feelings, I mean, they're just uncomfortable. We'll be all right. Like, I mean, I tell one of my daughters this all the time because she struggles with thoughts and things like that. And I'm like, you've made it through every spiral, every panic attack so far. I think you'll be okay through this one. And when it comes to feelings, well, I've made it through how many elections sober? I can make it through this one. I've made it through this sober. And sometimes you start to shock yourself. But with the loneliness, embrace it. Learn something new. Make a goal. I mean, learn the piano, learn the guitar, learn to program a computer, learn
Learn AI.
politics. Yeah. And I learned when I first got sober, I got obsessed with learning critical thinking because I was like, okay, I certainly can't think critically because I'm a drunk and that's what I think about. And so I learned that. And then I learned politics. And when I went into rehab, I was a staunch Republican. Not that there's anything wrong with it. When I came out, I liked Bernie because I studied things and I made a different opinion on my own. If you're going to have an opinion that you're going to go to bat for, have it be your own. Work for it. One of the best gifts in sobriety is the stuff that I believe now. As crazy as it might be, I own it. I worked for it. And that's the best thing to have. Hey, I worked for that. I didn't just watch a TV show. I'm not just spouting what they're saying. I mean, you listen to it. You argue with someone on politics, you're not arguing. And I actually have a theory on this. I think with the invention of cable news, we were taught to argue our differences without listening to each other. Because you watch cable TV, that's what they do. You watch the news and it's like, oh, well, this guy's a dumbass and this guy's a smart guy and he's a this and he's a that. And it teaches us to divide. What's dividing us is the news. And I'm not talking about like the Weather Channel. Weather Channel's fine. I like to know when a storm is going to be here. It's good. But when you're talking about other stuff, it's dividing us by making us think certain ways. And this election is the epitome of the lowest of the low of he bad, she bad. That's all it is. Tell me some policy. Tell me how you're going to change the lives of people who are struggling. You got a plan for inflation? Tell me how it's going to work. You got a plan for this? Tell me how it's going to work. Unfortunately, I believe that we have been so far brainwashed by this stuff that it's hard to see our way out, because we have been taught that arguing and identity politics is the key. And I mean, you look at it, it was a shift. I mean, I'm not old enough to remember. I think Terry might be, not much, but you might remember beforehand, or even remember your parents talking about, like, back when we had people that I'd get out and vote for. Whereas today it's all just a wish-wash of hate and I don't like and you don't like, and people that are, like, to me, I look at it and I'm like, we live in America. It's the best we got. Like, there's 300 million people that this is it. Okay, sure. And again, I think it's a brainwashing because of identity politics, and I think there's something bigger going on that us middle class and regular folk don't know about. Not to get into conspiracies, but I think there's, something bigger, obviously, because it's like, okay, the billionaire class always gets what they want. And it's funny because I was watching something that was saying if lobbyists want a law passed, there's a 90% chance it will get passed. If Terry and Marcus want a law passed to say, call this number for help on alcohol, what do you think the chances are of it getting passed? Zero.
Yeah.
Money controls politics. That's all it is. It's a big money show. And that's sad. You look at that and it's like, okay, and Bird says Trump is the best. I would say, for what? Whenever you have a blanket statement, ask yourself, for what? What is he best for? Okay, you might have some good opinions. What's this other party good for? What's this thing good for? I mean, there's ideas that work all around, and I think we have to submit to the fact that we don't know, and submit to the fact that we are, I forget what it's called, there's a cognitive bias of choice. I forget the name of it. It's cognitive bias, choice supportive bias. You're not choosing based on what you want. You're choosing on what was put in front of you. One of the biggest peeves I have, I'll let you guys know about this peeve that I have. The biggest peeve I have in this election is that for the Democratic Party, we didn't choose our candidate. It was chosen for us. That's my peeve. That, in my opinion, is not democracy. That's, here's what you get. Now this is what it is. I didn't have a chance to say, hey, maybe Bernie should get another shot. Oh, he's too old. Well, actually, Biden's older, and I think Bernie's in better mental shape. But, I can't say that, apparently. But looking at that, we were given these two choices that we really didn't choose. And that's a cognitive choice support bias. Like, if it was up to me, yeah, I'd probably pick this or that or something else. Or, hey, let's listen to what people have to say. And I think, and myself included, I am the world's worst listener. I'm one of those people where my brain is always thinking about what to say next. I try to listen to people. Sometimes my mind works faster than my mouth. And I'm like, okay, it just comes out. But I try, and I am aware of that. And I think self-awareness to say, I could be wrong. And congrats, Murray Hirthy. Yeah. 15 years sober. That's amazing.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Absolutely. 15 years. That's solid. I think I'm 10. Terry, you're 10, yeah?
Yes, I am.
Awesome. So there you go. You're the...
That's 35 years between the three of us.
There you go. That's a lot. Yep. But yeah, understanding, like, there are biases in our mind and we're walking into them. And I walk into them still. I like to think I'm Mr. Enlightened, but I'm not. I fall for these things all the time. It's the way the brain works. And some people know how to exploit that. And alcohol certainly knows how to ruin it. That's why I don't drink. Because like, at least without alcohol, I have a fighting chance to try to make my own opinion. With alcohol, I'm screwed. I'm hosed, metaphorically and literally. And I would never want that life back.
I think one thing, if I was still drinking, the way I'd get obsessive and compulsive while I was drinking, I would just have YouTube would be on 24 hours a day. And then MSNBC or Fox or whatever would be on the TV 24 hours a day. I'd be watching both of them at the same time.
Same.
All day long.
Yep.
I just get like that. That's what alcohol does to me, is it just makes me obsessive about something.
Yep. And I actually
Makes me
have
go crazy.
my coffee cup is the news. Pinocchio. But yeah, understanding like how many times in my life have I gotten so excited or upset about something and it was nothing? Thousands. How many things did I drink over that I thought were going to be huge that were nothing? Thousands. Now I don't have to anymore. Now I can, like, sometimes I have to laugh at myself because I got sucked into it. You know, I was getting sucked into the politics and my wife's like, "You're an idiot." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I forgot I was an idiot. That's true." Okay, so now that I know that, I can reset. And sometimes in life we need to reset. We need to come back to center and say, you know what? I'm sober. And it's interesting too. Another thing that I have, a lot of people are just complaining about inflation and all that stuff. And I get that it's difficult. I totally understand it. But there are, like here in America, where, let's say the lower middle class, not even middle class, lower middle class, in terms of what they have today, it's better than kings in the 1700s. Like, it's better than kings. Like, kings had servants. We have servants. Like, I have a servant that entertains me. I just turn it on, and I could pick anything I want on Netflix. I have things that make me food. I can go get whatever food I want. I have air condition. Like, the king didn't have air conditioner. He had to have people fan him. I don't need a fanner. I got a fan that blows, I get 72 degrees. Never go below 72 degrees as long as I live. I set that thing and I'm good to go. I got a fridge that keeps things cool. I got computers. I could talk to the entire world. I could share my story of sobriety. Kings couldn't do that. They had to go out and hear ye and all that stuff. We live so much better today. We have better health care today. We have better everything. Now, am I the first to complain about the health care? Yeah. Before the Affordable Care Act, I paid $100 a month with a $7,000 deductible for my family. Now my health insurance costs more than my house. A lot of people don't realize that. How much does a billionaire's cost? More than Marcus's house. Really? That much more? No, it's the same. The cutoff is 400 grand. They treat a guy making 400 grand the same as someone making 100 billion. And starting to realize that I used to get really excited about that. Like, I remember back in the day when I was a staunch Republican, I thought I was writing checks to Obama when I wrote my tax. Like, I was like, there goes to Obama in his limousine. And I was an idiot. I just listened and spouted what I was told. Propaganda. And now I realize, okay, yeah, some of that stuff I do get caught up in, but I try to think about it for myself. And I try to think about what I want. And I try to listen to other opinions. Back before I was getting sober, I wouldn't listen to other opinions. Now I will. Someone comes up, they're like, hey, I like this person, I like that person. And I could say, oh, well, there are things I like about that person. Enough to vote? Well, not in this race, but, you know, to each his own. And you got to look at it and be like, okay, what is there that's going on? What is there that's going on? And realizing that sobriety is the first priority.
Yes. And you know, whatever happens today and tomorrow, and depending on the outcome, things could be happening more over the next few months. And really, my attitude is, what control do I have over it again?
Yep.
What am I going to do? Is something going to happen where I live, or to me personally? I doubt it. Maybe, but all I can do is prepare.
Yep.
Lock my doors, do the normal stuff, be aware of my surroundings. If there's a giant protest going on in downtown,
Don't go
uh,
downtown.
don't go. If one starts when I'm down there, leave.
Yep.
Things like that. All I can do is common sense, and that's all I can do. And
And
and I'm not going to go drink over it because drinking is just going to make it worse.
also, I would say, um, for those of you who are excited, and let us know in the comments in the chat, if you're excited about politics and you get overwhelmed and it bothers you, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Whether you watch the news today or not, the outcome will be the same. So what if you spend tonight watching funny movies? Like, go watch Tommy Boy. He's good. Or Ace Ventura. Or White Chicks. Fantastic movie. And you'll laugh and you'll have fun and you'll wake up and the outcome will be the same. And you know what's going to happen? You could not watch it the next day. Actually, this was something I did back in, I noticed around 2021, I was watching the news a lot. And even in the Bernie times, I was watching it a lot. I was getting obsessed with it. And I realized if I shut the TV off and go to work, one, I 6 times my income, which was cool, or the size of my business rather. And two, the outcomes were the same and I had no emotional investment. Like I literally lived a better life by not having a stimulus that is stress. Like I think, if anything, like there should be a mandate on cable TV news. This might mess your brain up, might cause drinking, might cause depression, might cause mental illness. Why? Because it's just rhetoric over and over and over again. And it's poison. Just like alcohol, it poisons your brain. Now, it doesn't make you drunk, luckily. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. That would be kind of bad. But it does poison your brain, and there are things that poison our brain in life. And some of them we willingly take, some of them we don't willingly take, some of them are addiction. I think there are people addicted to news. And it's sad. It's very sad. It's,
that was my parents.
Yeah. And I go to Alabama and they're like, Fox News is on all the time. And all of them are propaganda. I am not saying one way or the other. Surprisingly, this time, MSNBC came out swinging with the most propaganda, most lies ever. I was like, whoa, I didn't see that coming. They were kind of quiet before. Maybe they're trying to make more money. I don't know. They are the outlier. But at any rate, it is all poison for the mind. It doesn't do you any good. It ain't going to do you any good. You wake up tomorrow, you get the same thing. Read the newspaper. Go back to the newspaper, support the newspaper to where you're like, okay, I'm done. There you go. Because the outcome is not going to change whether you watch it or not. It's not going to change. So with that, hopefully you enjoyed our politics talk. Hopefully other people see it and get some more value out of it. Smash the like button if you enjoyed it and post your comments on what you think. Let us know what you think. What issues get you going. Thanks for being here. And any last words, Terry? Are you good?
Just don't drink, no matter what. Good to
Easy.
see you all. Thank
All
you.
right.
Congratulations on all of your sobriety.